Welcome to our Building Bridges series, in which we talk with people of differing worldviews and life experiences to learn how to better understand and care for one another. In this segment, we talk with former state legislators Amanda Price and David Rutledge, who worked across the aisle during their 2 terms as Michigan state legislators, about specific ways to build bridges with those who disagree with you. Let me tell you a little bit about them. David is currently the Griffin Endowed Chair in American Government at Central Michigan University. He has a long history of public service, including 6 years as a Democratic state legislator in the Michigan House of Representatives. He's been a township supervisor. He has many memberships on numerous boards, and he was a captain in the United States Air Force. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer.
And our next guest is Amanda Price, and Amanda is currently the county treasurer for Ottawa County, Michigan. She has served as a Republican legislator in the Michigan House of Representatives. And prior to her time in the House, Amanda has worked as a legislative aide. She's been a township supervisor as well, and she has supported numerous philanthropic causes, including the Children's Advocacy Center and the Boys and Girls Club. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you very much, Jennifer.
So it's great to have you both here. Let me start with you, Amanda, with our first question. How did you and David first meet?
We first met when we were both elected to the Michigan legislature in the same term. And we first met, you go through several trainings as new legislators, and we met in the course of those trainings and then became legislators when we were sworn in. So that's how we got to know each other.
Okay. So David, as you got to know Amanda, what did you find you had in common?
Well, I first of all, meeting Amanda in that legislative orientation, where I can't remember, Amanda, how many of us. It seems like it was close to 20 of us. But at any rate, we had an off-site activity where we actually went to Kalamazoo, and at that session, at that activity of orientation, we got a chance to have dinner with each other, and I had dinner with Amanda, sat at the same table, and so that interaction got me to know her a little better, and the things that I think we share, a love for public service, and particularly the local government. As you noted, both of us have served, and Amanda is still serving in local government as a treasurer, but the township supervisor thing is what she and I used to most talk about, because we both were township supervisors.
Amanda, you and I have talked in the past, and I'm kind of curious to know how you and David went about continuing forging that trusting relationship that started during your new legislator orientation.
Well, we had the opportunity to serve on the same committee, the local government committee, no surprise. And people can't believe this, but it was really a fun committee to serve on. A lot of, I would think people had such wealth of experience on this committee. It was really enjoyable because you didn't have a lot of explaining to do. They were just like the wisdom kings and queens around that table. Everybody knew a lot, and it was just a lot of fun because we all understood the issues really well. And the chair made it a lot of fun, but that, I think, bonded us in a lot of ways, because the issues that we were dealing with are not partisan. They're not you're not divisive at all. It's local government. You're dealing with drains, or you're dealing with road patrol. So it's just a lot of bonding around that experience, and that carried us through the rest of our time together in the legislature.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. David, I know that you recently wrote an essay titled, "Can We Talk Politics and Still Be Friends?" And
Yes.
I thought that was a really excellent essay. What prompted you to write that essay?
It was. I'm friends with a person who has a Christian ministry of dealing with young men, and he had brought this group together, and in their discussion, he found there was a lot of discussion around people having feelings of real that were on the verge of really hating people they used to be friends with. And so he asked me, can you kind of talk to us, help us with some thoughts about how we might can deal with people who may have conflicting ideas with us.
Mm.
And that was really the genesis of that article. And some of these people, Jennifer, interestingly enough, sitting around that table in this group were attorneys that were having conflicts with their clients around just their ideas. They were accountants, they were financial managers, and these people were beginning to have very strong feelings against some of their clients as the conversation drifted into the political world. Something was going on, and the conversation turned toward politics. And then the clashes of views came out. The people who were in these positions might not express their views, but they were hearing what their clients were saying, and it conflicted with their own beliefs, and they were having serious problems.
In one of the things I find myself thinking, and one of the reasons that we invited two former legislators to be our first guests on this series, was that when you were in the House, that was your job, was to learn how to get things done respectfully with people who had very different worldviews or ideologies. Am I right about that?
But sometimes not so respectfully. You're right. And look, there were discussions that got really contentious. You can't imagine the tension. Several times, and I don't know, Amanda will agree or disagree. I'd walk into onto the House floor, and you could feel the tension. You could cut it with a knife. Well, yeah, Amanda, did you share some of those thoughts?
Yeah, some of them, you're kind of prepared that it was going to be a very contentious day because of that one issue that was coming up. And so just like, and then we actually kind of had a couple of fist fights. You remember that, David?
Yes. No,
It might not have been about issues. It might have been other personality things, but there were some actual fights on the floor.
That is absolutely correct. And I think, and Amanda, that was on my side of the aisle.
Yeah.
I mean, a pushing match, among legislators. Look, I share with my students that, and we're learning about local government and the legislature. And I say to them that when people from afar look at what goes on in the legislature, and I compare it to sausage making, that's not a pretty sight. I was raised on a farm in a rural area, and making sausage is not pretty.
No, it's not a pretty process, and what it takes is, I think, one of the things that in Michigan we have term limits, and it's really impeded us, I think, from doing a lot of better work because you're there for such a short period of time. Mm-hmm. And in the legislature, it's an innate thing. Your relationships with other people make everything flow much more smoothly. So if you really know a person and you understand the perspectives on things, you can come up to them and say, what do you think about this bill idea? Is this something you can support? But if you don't have time to invest in those relationships with those people, you're just cutting yourself off at the knees almost, because the relationships are what makes everything work in a legislative setting.
Mhm.
And I think that's one of the reasons David and I got along so well, is that we had that basis for our relationship as we were going in. And also we're a little bit older and
Yeah.
we have the shared experience, but you need those relationships, and you have to understand and care for people, as opposed to looking at them as an opponent or the person on the other side of the aisle, because they're doing their job just as I am there doing my job.
Mhm.
Well, let me suggest that you heard Amanda said, we had a relationship and we talked about various things. But let me tell you, Amanda and I disagreed on a lot of stuff vehemently. But by contrast, we agreed on some things. But this is the point. Our disagreements never descended into a dislike for each other. I knew her, understood where she was coming from, but that was only because I took the time to listen to her and to try to understand the why behind some of her philosophical basis and why she approached an issue the way that she did. And I think that somewhere in the midst of that, it is the key to building these bridges of relationships. Yes.
So now that brings us to the end of our time together. I really appreciate David Rutledge, Amanda Price, former Michigan state legislators who worked together very successfully across the aisle during their time, and for sharing their wisdom about how to build bridges. If you happen to be in conversation with someone who doesn't think exactly like you do. And it's a wonderful way to care well for others when you build that trust and build those relationships. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It was my great pleasure. Thank you.
Mine as well. It's wonderful to see David again. I just love seeing him.
Oh, thank you. The same here, Amanda. Be well and take care.